The Maldives resorts sparkled like scattered diamonds across the turquoise lagoon as our seaplane descended toward Paradise Cove, the same exclusive property I'd acquired through my investment firm 6 months earlier. 23 family members pressed against the aircraft windows, marveling at the private beaches and overwater villas they assumed were draining my modest savings account. "This must be costing Alex a fortune," Mom whispered to Aunt Linda, her voice carrying that familiar mixture of concern and excitement that appeared whenever someone else was paying. "I hope she can afford it." I could afford it. The $47,000 weekly rate for our group represented approximately 37 minutes of passive income from my hospitality portfolio, though my family remained convinced I worked as a freelance graphic designer barely making rent in Brooklyn. "Alex always goes overboard trying to impress us," my sister Jessica declared, adjusting her designer sunglasses, a birthday gift she didn't know came from profits generated by a resort chain I owned across 3 continents. "She probably maxed out credit cards for this trip." Maxed out credit cards. The American Express Centurion card in my wallet carried no preset spending limit and was backed by investment accounts containing enough liquid assets to purchase small Caribbean nations. But maintaining the illusion of financial struggle had become essential family theater. "I told Alex we could have gone somewhere more reasonable," Dad announced to anyone within hearing distance, his voice carrying that particular authority he reserved for financial wisdom. "But she insisted on this expensive place to show off." Showing off. By bringing my family to a property I owned, where I planned to conduct discreet business meetings with potential investors while ensuring my relatives enjoyed luxury accommodations they'd never afford independently. "At least Alex is finally spending money on family instead of just herself," Uncle Robert added helpfully, apparently forgetting the numerous family expenses I'd quietly covered through anonymous transfers and convenient coincidences. "Just herself." While secretly funding my cousin's medical school tuition, my nephew's private school education, and my parents' mortgage refinancing that had reduced their payments by 60%. But generosity only counted when visible to people who could express appropriate gratitude. "We should really take advantage of this," Jessica continued, her voice brightening with entrepreneurial enthusiasm. "Order room service, book spa treatments, try all the expensive activities. Alex is paying anyway." Alex is paying anyway. The casual assumption that my resources existed for their consumption revealed everything about their perception of my role in family dynamics. I existed as a financial resource to be maximized during rare opportunities. "I think Alex feels guilty about something," Grandmother Eleanor observed with the psychological insight of someone who'd spent 85 years analyzing family motivations. "Otherwise, why would she spend this much money on us?" Guilt. About succeeding beyond their comprehension while allowing them to maintain comfortable delusions about my actual financial situation. The guilt of watching them struggle with expenses I could resolve instantly, if revealing my wealth wouldn't destroy the family relationships I'd spent years carefully maintaining. "Maybe Alex got a bonus from her little design business," Mom suggested hopefully, apparently having constructed an elaborate fantasy about my professional life. "Though I can't imagine what client would pay enough for this kind of vacation." Design business. My actual client list included sovereign wealth funds, private equity firms and multinational corporations seeking strategic investment advice. Yesterday's email had contained an invitation to advise the Norwegian government pension fund on emerging market allocations. "Alex has always been impractical with money," Dad continued, warming to his favorite topic of my financial irresponsibility. "Remember when she insisted on buying that expensive laptop for work? Probably still paying it off." That expensive laptop. A MacBook Pro that cost less than my hourly consulting rate and contained financial models that had generated 8-figure returns for institutional investors across 4 continents. But explaining that would shatter the carefully constructed narrative of my economic mediocrity. "The important thing is enjoying this opportunity," Aunt Patricia declared with the wisdom of someone who'd never paid for her own luxury vacation. "Alex won't be able to afford something like this again anytime soon." The first day unfolded with the systematic precision of wealth extraction, each family member contributing their expertise to maximizing my presumed financial sacrifice. "I've booked us all for the deluxe spa package," Jessica announced at breakfast, her voice bright with accomplishment. "Full body massages, facial treatments, the works. It's only $800 per person." Only $800 per person. 423 people, representing a cost that exceeded most families' monthly income. But Jessica's casual assumption of my financial obligation revealed her complete disconnect from economic reality. The kids want to try the submarine excursion, cousin Jennifer added helpfully, consulting the resort's activity menu like a strategic planning document. It's $1,200 per person, but it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Once in a lifetime. For them, perhaps. I own submarine tour companies in 3 different countries and had used similar excursions for client entertainment and tax-advantaged business development. We should definitely do the helicopter tour, Uncle Robert suggested with the enthusiasm of someone spending other people's money. The aerial photography alone would be worth the $2,500 per person. The helicopter tour. Operated by a company I'd acquired last year as part of a diversified transportation portfolio. The aircraft currently circling the resort bore registration numbers linked to my Cayman Islands subsidiary. Alex, you're being very quiet, Mom observed, her voice carrying that familiar edge of maternal concern. I hope you're not worrying about the expenses. This is supposed to be fun. Not worrying about expenses. While calculating the irony of my family spending my money on services provided by companies I owned, generating profits that would ultimately return to investment accounts they didn't know existed. Maybe we should order room service for every meal, Dad suggested, apparently determined to maximize the financial impact of our vacation. Since Alex is treating us, we might as well enjoy the full resort experience. The full resort experience. Including private dining services, premium wine selections, and personalized concierge attention that my resort management team had been instructed to provide regardless of cost. I've signed us up for the shopping excursion to Mail, Aunt Linda announced, having discovered new opportunities for financial extraction. The boat transfer is $500 per person, but they have amazing local crafts. The shopping excursion. To boutiques and galleries where I maintained wholesale accounts through my luxury goods import business. My family would be buying products I'd sourced and marked up, creating circular profit streams they'd never comprehend. Alex is so generous, Grandmother Eleanor declared, her voice heavy with the particular pride elderly women reserve for family members they consider surprisingly successful. I never expected she could afford something this extravagant. Never expected. Because they'd carefully maintained assumptions about my economic limitations that made my actual success invisible, even when the evidence surrounded them like crystal-clear lagoon water. We should really go all out, Jessica concluded, her voice taking on that aggressive enthusiasm people use when justifying excessive spending. How often does Alex get to treat us like this? We need to make sure she feels appreciated. Make sure she feels appreciated. By systematically depleting credit cards they assumed represented my entire financial capacity, while treating my generosity as an opportunity for maximum exploitation rather than grateful moderation. I think Alex wants us to have the best possible time, Mom added, apparently having conducted psychological analysis during her morning swim. That's why she's being so generous with money she probably doesn't have. Money she probably doesn't have. The assessment would have been devastating if not for the offshore accounts containing enough liquidity to purchase the entire Maldivian tourism industry without affecting my daily cash flow. The revelation came through Michael Harrison, Paradise Cove's general manager, who approached our lunch table flanked by 3 senior staff members and carrying documents that would transform family dynamics permanently. Miss Chen, he announced, his voice carrying the particular deference resort managers reserve for property owners. We need to discuss the accommodation adjustments you requested for your family members. The conversation around our beachside tables stopped as if someone had muted the ocean itself. Jessica's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Accommodation adjustments? Michael consulted his tablet, apparently working from detailed instructions. Miss Chin requested that all family members be moved from the overwater villas to standard garden rooms, effective immediately. That's impossible, Dad said, his voice tight with the particular strain of someone whose world was shifting beneath his feet. Alex is just a guest here like the rest of us. Actually, Michael replied, his tone professionally neutral. Miss Chin is the majority owner of Paradise Cove Resort through Azure Hospitality Holdings. This property is part of her luxury resort portfolio. Mom's wine glass froze in midair, suspended like a crystal monument to shattered assumptions. According to our records, Michael continued, consulting his comprehensive briefing. Ms. Chin owns 17 resort properties across 4 continents, including the helicopter tour company, submarine excursion service, and shopping centers you've been patronizing. Uncle Robert's face had gone completely gray, matching the storm clouds gathering on the horizon. The expenses you've been charging to Ms. Chen's accounts, Michael explained with the patience of someone delivering frequently devastating news, represent services provided by companies she owns. You've essentially been spending her money on her own businesses. The documentation spread across our lunch table like evidence of an elaborate financial investigation. Property deeds, corporate ownership structures, service provider contracts, all bearing my signature as Chief Executive Officer. Ms. Chen also asked me to inform you, Michael continued, that your spa appointments have been cancelled, the submarine excursion is no longer available to your group, and room service will be limited to standard menu items. Jessica found her voice first, though it emerged as barely more than a whisper. Alex, you own this resort? 17 resorts, Michael corrected helpfully. Plus the airline that brought you here, the seaplane company that transferred you from Mail, and the luxury goods stores where you've been shopping. The beach had become completely silent except for the lapping of waves against the shore and the distant sound of helicopter rotors. One of my aircraft conducting a routine guest transfer. The credit cards you assumed Ms. Chin had maxed out, Michael added, apparently working from a very detailed script. Our corporate accounts backed by investment portfolios worth approximately $340 million. Dad was staring at me as if I'd revealed myself to be an entirely different species. Ms. Chin requested that I explain her family accommodation changes as a business decision, Michael concluded. The overwater villas are being reserved for paying guests, while family members will enjoy standard accommodations at no charge. Resolution. The aftermath unfolded with the systematic precision of a hostile takeover. Jessica's designer wardrobe proved irrelevant when her garden room came with a basic closet and standard amenities instead of the luxury suite she'd assumed represented my financial sacrifice. The reality of being a guest rather than a beneficiary required significant adjustment. Dad's financial advice became notably less frequent after learning that his daughter's impractical spending included acquiring international resort chains and transportation companies. His expertise in budgeting seemed less relevant when applied to someone with more liquidity than small nations. The family shopping excursions continued, but at wholesale prices I extended as owner courtesy rather than the retail markups they'd been paying while depleting my supposed credit limits. The mathematics of circular profit streams required explanation they weren't prepared to comprehend. Mom stopped expressing concern about my ability to afford luxury accommodations after touring the resort's owner's suite, a penthouse villa I'd designed specifically for conducting international business while maintaining personal privacy. I never revealed the full extent of my hospitality empire. The family learned about Paradise Cove's ownership, but discovering my control of hotel chains, airline investments, and tourism infrastructure across 3 continents would have created cognitive dissonance beyond their processing capacity. The most satisfying moment came during our final dinner, when Jessica attempted to order the premium wine selection and learned that owner discretion determined guest access to certain amenities. Alex, I think there's been a misunderstanding about the wine list, she said, her voice carrying a humility that had been absent for 30 years. Through the villa's floor-to-ceiling windows, my resort stretched across the lagoon like an illuminated testament to strategic investment and patient planning. There's no misunderstanding, I replied quietly, reviewing acquisition proposals for properties in Bora Bora and Fiji. Standard guests receive standard amenities. Premium services require premium consideration. The silence stretched across our table, heavy with years of assumed financial authority over my resources. Family members who treat hospitality as exploitation, I added before returning to my investment documents, discover that generosity requires reciprocal respect, not maximized extraction. Some lessons in economic boundaries like resort management required clear policies consistently enforced. The Paradise Cove resort continued generating exceptional returns for investors who understood the difference between strategic generosity and unlimited access. My family remained welcome as guests, paying guests at standard rates, subject to the same behavioral expectations as other visitors. They never returned to the Maldives. The memory of garden rooms and restricted amenities apparently diminished their enthusiasm for luxury travel at someone else's expense. My resort empire continued expanding across international markets, providing exceptional experiences for guests who appreciated hospitality without confusing access with entitlement. The family learned that assumption and exploitation represented different business models, and that my resources existed for strategic purposes beyond their immediate gratification. Some relationships, like resort properties, required professional management and clear boundaries to maintain their value over time.